In this video, we will show you how to replace your water pump on this Ford Ranger with a 2.3-liter engine. This will be located along the front of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friends, let's get started on our job. The first thing you need to do is make sure that your cooling system is cool to the touch. It's not a good idea to open it up when it's hot. Aside from that, you want to make sure you have hand and eye protection and a collection receptacle for your coolant. Carefully open up your coolant reservoir cap counterclockwise, lift it up and give it a close inspection, and now we'll just set this aside for now. At this point, we'll have to safely make our way under the vehicle. Now, under the front of the vehicle, if you were to look below where the radiator would be, you're going to find that you have a small plastic trim panel making its way across. This trim panel is held in place with 4 13mm headed bolts, 2 on each side, and there's also a push clip. Inspect all of your mounting hardware as you remove it, replace it as necessary. We'll leave this push clip on this side, remove the bolts on the far side. For your push clips, you can either use a trim tool or you can use a small screwdriver. We'll just pry these out of place. A quick inspection of that shield and we'll set it aside. At this point, we have a clear view of our drain on the radiator on the passenger side lower corner here. Make sure you have a collection bucket under this area so you can collect that fluid. Reuse it or recycle it and replace it. Use a 19mm here. We'll divert this directly into our collection receptacle. Now that we've finished draining our cooling system, go ahead and close up that petcock. Use a 19mm. Keep in mind you are only screwing plastic into plastic. We don't want to strip it out. We just need to make sure that it is making positive contact and this is not loose in any way. Once you've done so, go ahead and clean up your mess and reinstall your protective cover. Now that we have that back together, let's look along the front of the engine. You're going to find your serpentine belt and you'll find your water pump pulley. That's this smooth pulley right along here. We will have to remove the serpentine belt to remove the water pump, but before you do, loosen each one of those 3 10mm headed bolts that hold the pulley to the water pump. There we are. Now let's make our way directly across the other side of that fan pulley over towards the serpentine belt tensioner. Now for the serpentine belt tensioner, you're going to be using a 3/8 drive. You can either use a ratchet or a serpentine belt tool. Make your way into this groove here and turn this counterclockwise, releasing tension from the belt. After that, slide the belt out of position. It's a good idea to take note of the belt routing. You'll find that the belt goes under some pulleys and over others. Now with that slid out of place, carefully give the belt a quick inspection. We want to inspect in the grooves here and along the back side. We're looking for any damage, whether it's a small crack or the like. Continue on by carefully setting that serpentine belt aside, making sure that it's not going to get wet with any coolant. At this point, remove each of your 3 10mm headed mounting bolts and your water pump pulley. A quick inspection of the pulley and go ahead and set it aside. So we're inspecting that mounting hardware as we continue. Now we can start dislodging the water pump from the engine. Now when you're doing this, you're going to find that you have 3 8mm headed bolts. Keep in mind there could still be coolant in this area. Have your collection bucket under here. 2 of these bolts are pretty much out in the open from the bottom here. The other one's right up along the top. I'm going to aim for that one first. It's the hardest to see from this angle. As you remove your final bolt, make sure you're holding on to that water pump as the bolt comes out so it doesn't fall down and potentially hurt you. If you find you're having a hard time getting this out of here, you may have to carefully start tapping on the ears of the water pump, rocking this from side to side. With that said, if that's the case, you have to remove the bolt because we don't want to damage the bolt in any way. At this point, you want to be extremely careful with the rest of the removal process so there's no way this can fall out and potentially hurt you. Continue on to taking hold of that water pump and carefully take it out of here. You can see that there still is coolant in this area. There it is, friend. Now that we have that water pump out of there, the next thing that you need to do is clean and inspect the engine where your brand new water pump will sit. We'll use some fine sandpaper for this. You never want to use coarse sandpaper. We're not trying to cause damage. We do want to make sure we have a smooth surface. Common to have corrosion in here. Now that I cleaned along the inside there, I'm also going to clean the outer mating surface. Inspect those holes where your mounting bolts go. One last quick inspection and we can prepare for installation. Okay, let's get ready for the installation of our brand new water pump. You'll find with your kit, it came with a new O-ring. That is the sealing ring and it has to be on the brand new water pump. Slide it right in the groove and make sure that it's completely seated all the way around. Once you have that O-ring on there, the next thing that you need to do is lubricate this area. It's good to use a lubricant that would work as a corrosion inhibitor. Okay, let's get ready to install that brand new water pump. Take this and put it in position. It should slide right in there. Start in all three of your 8mm headed bolts. Snug them up and torque those to 89 inch-pounds. You'll find as you start snugging these, it pulls the water pump in for you. Now that I have them torqued to 89 inch-pounds, I'm going to go around one more time just to confirm that everything's seated perfectly. Let's clean up the coolant mess in this area. Now it's time to install the water pump pulley here. Take this and put it in position. Start in each one of your 10mm headed bolts. It's a good idea to make sure you've cleaned and inspected those threads. Once you have it up on there, go ahead and start those in and bottom them out. Let's pause on that water pump pulley and now we'll continue on to our serpentine belt. Carefully take this and bring it over each one of the pulleys. What you'll find is you'll have to take your serpentine belt tool, Turn that tensioner counterclockwise to release tension, and then slide the belt into the proper position over each one of the pulleys. This is what you'd be paying attention for. If the belt's off by even one tooth, you will completely destroy the belt and potentially cause other damage as well. Now, while we're under this area, let's continue on to torquing those water pump pulley bolts to 177 inch-pounds. When you go to torque this, you will find that the pulley will want to spin. If that happens, make your way back over to the tensioner. This time, we're going to attempt to turn it clockwise, holding extra pressure on the belt system while we torque each one of those three 10mm headed bolts. One last quick inspection under here, and now we can make our way back up under the hood. Under the hood, we'll be looking back at that coolant reservoir area. We want to make sure that we fill up the cooling system. There's several different ways of doing this. One, you could use a funnel. Go ahead and put on an adapter and put it in place. Fill up the cooling system, run the vehicle for a short while, and let it burp out any air in the system. The problem with using something like this is you want to make sure you do get it at that maximum line. Other than this, you could also try using a vacuum system if you have a specialty tool like this. This is going to create vacuum. After that, we'll just be drawing that brand new coolant directly into the system. Since this is the tool that I'm using, I'll be paying attention to my gauge. Wait until the gauge makes its way all the way up into the green and then sits there. After that, I'll be turning off the air and we'll make sure that it holds pressure. This ensures that we have no leaks. Once we're sure that it does not drop pressure, we can continue on with releasing the vacuum and allowing coolant to make its way into the system. Let's apply vacuum. As you can see, the gauge has not dropped after we've been watching it for several seconds. I feel confident we do not have a coolant leak. Let's continue on adding the manufacturer's specified coolant here. You do want to ensure that it's pre-mixed. You never want to use concentrate. That can cause a cooling issue. At this point, I want to make sure that the coolant does make its way down to that maximum line. So I'm just going to let a little bit of this vacuum make its way out down to where it needs to be. If I need to add a little bit more coolant, I'll flip the switch on the opposite valve. At this point, we're going to start up the vehicle. Once you start it up, turn it right back off. Triple check your serpentine belt to ensure that it's on each and every one of the pulleys. After that, you're going to start up the vehicle and let it run for a little while. Get up to normal operating temperature and pay attention in this area. You may find that you have small air bubbles making their way up and out of the cooling system, and the coolant level will make its way down. As that continues happening, make sure you're topping off the coolant with the manufacturer's specified coolant. Once the vehicle's at normal operating temperature, you should hear your cooling fan turn on. At that point, you know it's time to install the cap, close the hood, and take your vehicle for a road test. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.